Hello and welcome back to This Week in Biotech by Biotech Blueprint. I'm Katarina, and today I'm covering biotech and pharma news from January 16th to January 22nd, 2026. It's edition number 86 on Substack, and it's right after the JP Morgan conference that ended, I think, on January 15th. And so this week was a little bit of an exhale after this conference, and there are definitely fewer headlines. The biggest news this week, in my opinion, is Moderna and Merck's data. So they posted 5-year follow-up data in high-risk resected stage 3 and stage 4 melanoma for their personalized mRNA vaccine. It's called itismeran, also called V940. In the phase 2b study called Keynote 942, adding the vaccine to pembrolizumab or Keytruda reduced the risk of recurrence and death by about 49% versus Keytruda alone, which is remarkable because, as you know, Keytruda is already such a good drug. And so improving it by almost 50% is truly remarkable milestone for the companies. The important point here also is that these results held up after 5 years. So they previously reported their results for 3 years. And then now we know that these results do not fade if you stretch it up to 5 years in adjuvant setting. And this is where a lot of oncology stories look crisp early and then they get sort of messier with time. Personalized vaccines are sold as immune memory, not just short-term immune activation. If the immune system is truly being trained, you want the separation to persist after the drug is gone. And so this is the closest thing we have so far to that thesis looking real in a mainstream tumor type. Now, the market's angle is also interesting because Moderna as a company entered 2026 with peak skepticism. By late 2025, it was one of the most heavily shorted names in the large cap index universe by percent of shares available to trade. And so they already earlier this month were doing better than the entire last year when they reiterated their 2026 plan for up to 10% revenue growth by building a seasonal vaccine business while continuing aggressive cost cuts and positioning its cash engine to fund the next wave of oncology and rare disease programs. And then this week, obviously, they reported this data, which is durable 5-year clinical proof in their flagship oncology program. That's exactly the kind of data or the kind of catalyst that can force people reconsider the post-pandemic narrative. Again, this is a phase 2B win. It doesn't guarantee another win in phase 3, but I'm optimistic, and I think this changes the conversation from mRNA surrounding the COVID era to more of a platform that can really build franchise if execution holds. Stefan Bancel, the CEO of Moderna, has been explicit that Moderna does not expect to fund new phase 3 vaccine programs for now in the current United States policy and regulatory climate, and the company is leaning harder into cancer and cardiovascular diseases, which are again looked at more favorably by the current government as well. GSK is buying RAPT Therapeutics for about $2.2 billion US. This is basically a one asset bet on convenience in food allergies. So the asset is called ozureprubart, a long-acting anti-immunoglobulin E antibody. Immunoglobulin E is the allergy antibody. It's responsible for allergies, including food allergies. And the benchmark here is Zolar, which is developed by Genentech and Novartis. And this was the first medicine approved in the United States to reduce allergic reactions from accidental food exposure. So GSK here is betting on a validated target, and they're basically hoping to move the needle, improve quality of life for some of these patients, especially children, which in this case would mean fewer clinic visits and fewer injections. But there's also a downside. Phase 2b data is not expected until 2027, and the competitive bar is not just efficacy, it's also safety and real-world reliability. Next, Bristol Myers Squibb partnered with Janux Therapeutics on a tumor-activated T-cell engager. The total headline number is about $850 million in potential value. But the important part is structure. Janux does the preclinical work to the investigational new drug application, and then BMS runs the human trials and commercialization. The target antigen is not disclosed, but it's described as validated and expressed across multiple solid tumors. And now we have 2 clinical updates. So Corcept Therapeutics reported that its pivotal phase 3 trial called Rosella met overall survival in platinum-resistant ovarian cancer. Another tongue twister, relacorilant plus nab-paclitaxel reduced the risk of death by 35% versus chemotherapy alone, and median overall survival improved from about 11.9 months to 16 months. Importantly, they are leaning on 2 commercial points that matter: no biomarker selection requirement and no meaningful added safety burden compared to with chemotherapy alone. So that sets up a high visibility regulatory decision in July of this year in the US and with a parallel review in Europe. And finally, Corvus Pharmaceuticals posted placebo-controlled phase 1 cohort data for soquelitinib in atopic dermatitis, also known as eczema. It was a small cohort, but the shape of the data is what matters. Responses deepened when treatment ran for 8 weeks, and by day 56, the average improvement in eczema severity score was materially better on drug than placebo, with a statistically significant separation. On responder endpoints, a meaningful fraction of patients hit high bars like 75% improvement. They also highlighted activity in patients who had prior systemic therapy, including people who did not respond well to dupilumab, marketed as Dupixent, and people with prior JAK inhibitor exposure. Safety looked clean in this snapshot with no severe or serious adverse events. Just to reiterate, even though it was a slower week, there was a lot, in my opinion, that matters. And if you want one thing to remember, I think the 5-year durability in melanoma is the kind of data point that can reset what people think about mRNA and what they can be. And I think this is why this week Moderna mattered. This is all for this week then, and I'll see you back next week. Thanks for listening.